Mohawk, Seneca, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, the Six Nations folks. They call themselves collectively Haudenosaunee. And European people saw that game and they're like, man, that looks really, really cool. And so that's this style stick, right? This is their stick. This is that style. And so that's why the modern stick that you're familiar with, probably more than you're familiar with this style in the Great Lakes. That's why you're familiar with that one. This is the Great Lakes style, Baaga'adowewin. But as you can see in this basket and in this slide, there are other styles. There's a two-stick style game that's in the southeast of the country. So these are Choctaw sticks. So Choctaw people, they trap the little ball. That little ball gets cradled between the two sticks. And it's a very physical game. So that's that style of stick. As the southeast culture for that game evolved, these are muskogee. These are a little bit shorter, a little bit more stout. And these ones are Cherokee. All these games, though, have things in common in that they're tools for training. Because life is challenging. That's why I do this. History has been challenging. As an Indigenous person in this country, it's a very complex place to exist. And for a fair amount of time, this game here in the Great Lakes has been non-existent for probably the last 100 years. In the last 10, 15 years, it's made a comeback, a resurgence. And that's due to all the things that Connor talked about this morning about boarding schools and assimilation practices and taking kids away to boarding schools. And I mean, my great-grandpa was Muskogee, and he met my great-grandma, who was Ojibwe, at a boarding school. And she stole his heart and brought him back here to Ojibwe country. So I have a connection to this two-stick game. And I have a connection to this Great Lakes game on my great-grandmother's side and so on. And, Indian agents would suppress this because it was gambling, and the United States suppressed everything that was about Indigenous culture because they wanted to mainstream and disappear us. That's not going to happen. And this game is not going to disappear. This way of life, I should say, because it's so much more than a game. And so when I was exposed to this, I knew exactly. I'm a pretty practical person. But every now and then in life, you have really profound experiences. And that's when I was exposed to this game in 2017 from my friends from Twin Cities Native Lacrosse. They brought some urban youth out camping in the woods, and they brought them through my office and said, hey, can you tell these kids about forest management because of the ash tree that the sticks are primarily made from? I said, sure. And their exchange was, let's have a game with kids in your community. And I played that day, and I knew that this was something that we needed to build back in my community. Because as a kid, I'd never seen a Baaga'adowewin before. That's how gone it was. Everyone played baseball, basketball, softball, boxing, that kind of thing. It's completely erased from Ojibwe culture. So the assimilation technique that they used worked in a lot of ways. But luckily, handfuls of people in isolated places hung on to it, and we've been able to rebuild that. And so my friends from Twin Cities Native Lacrosse, because they're urban Indians, they're trying to connect urban people back to their culture. We're very, if you know anything about why are there lots of Native people living in urban centers, it goes back to the 50s and 60s when they said, let's relocate and disappear Indigenous people in another way by disconnecting them from their cultures and their lands. And so there's all these urban populations of Indigenous people. Well, they feel lost in some ways sometimes. And one way that some of their smarter, older people thought was, let's connect them to the games that are from their respective cultures. So that's what these folks with Twin Cities Native Lacrosse do. They get all these people that are maybe studying in college or just live there, and they get together weekly, play game. And luckily, I ran into them. And so that to me is really powerful. I feel like it was kind of meant to be. I don't, I have the way that I have been taught and brought up is that I have an auntie that says nothing happens for nothing. And what I've learned and come to understand on my own is that this is a game. This game is a gift. It's a tool from the money dug or the spirits. The money dug and it's to train our people to heal and to be strong, to be resilient, because that's what we need. And this is that's what this is. And that's what it is to the Haudenosaunee. That's what it is to the Choctaw, the Cherokee, the Muskogee. That's what it is to all those people. It's a tool that maybe was used for dispute resolution. Some cultures call this game or these games little brothers of war and all those kinds of things. And it could be that. But now it's in its new sort of evolved state. It's to help us process and live through our current situation. Indigenous communities struggle with all of the bad sides of humanity in every single way, whether that's mental health, physical health, the traumas and things that we have from history. And that's why I believe this is back, is to help us with that. Because what we're doing with this is we're teaching these young ones that it's okay to be themselves, that they should be the most beautiful, profound Ojibwe person that they should be. It's okay for them to learn their language, their songs, their ceremonies, despite what the United States wanted for them. That's a failed effort, and that we're going to just be our Ojibwe people, and that's what this is for. This is just one aspect of our culture that we want to promote, and it has those sort of crossovers between your physical, mental, and physical well-being. And there's Tay's one of the best skiers in the Great Lakes region. Has just joined the room. Good to see you. You should come out and play with us sometime. But this is my wife and my way. This is my little namesake. And so I like to just throw people in that I know into my slides. But what she's doing in that picture is it just looks like some people hanging out, but she's an Ojibwe immersion teacher. She teaches kindergarten in Ojibwe language. And she's talking to him because his family raises him to be bilingual. And so they're having a conversation in Ojibwe about playing. And that's why this is beautiful. So it brings us together. In our smaller Ojibwe bands, it's nice to go visit other communities and have tournaments or have healing games and share between different generations and to tell stories and laugh at each other and compete with each other. That's what this does, and that's the gift that this is. This is the tool that is. That's to help us heal in that way. And I get to do a lot of this, and this is really, really cool, right? But I don't do it alone. I've had people that have mentored and helped me. This is my little brother. This is Naokwe over there. He's our Ojibwe language coordinator at Fond du Lac, and he helps us in our community sponsor these games. So weekly we hold these games. So if any of you are around and you want to come see some crazy stuff, come out on a Thursday night during the winter to the Fond du Lac Tribal College. We play from 5 to 8. Everyone's welcome. We'll feed you even. We can't say you won't leave bruised up maybe, but you can just come watch. And in the summer months we play outdoors. So it's every Thursday, and that's so that the community can rely on it. We can try to be there and have something safe and building for them. But one of the things that we use this for is he uses it in his way, because he's an Ojibwe language, I don't know, what do you want to call it, fanatic. And so what we've done is to build back language and culture in a really assimilated community. Is this jacket I'm wearing, I had to earn it. And I earned it by learning a whole bunch of Ojibwe language. And I got some shorts and some sweats and a jersey and all this stuff because I learned a whole bunch of terminology. If we're trying to get teenagers to learn Ojibwe, they're not just going to want, some more stuff to learn. But they loved playing Baaga'adowewin. A lot of the kids love it. And so we trick them into learning some Ojibwe language, and then pretty soon we sit back as old guys and they run the games, and they're using the language that he taught them about the game just organically and not in a forced way. They're just doing it. And so that's what we're doing, is teaching them language. We're teaching them concepts like gifting. So one of the things with this game is sometimes we play for money in tournaments sometimes. Sometimes we just play for fun. But a lot of the games, we call them a gift game. Everybody who's going to play, if you have the means, you bring a gift. And there's usually a blanket, and you put a gift down. And in that gift, that's a prayer. That's a ceremony. When you put that gift down, that you talk. Like, he'll talk for 15 minutes about the gift he's putting down. If you've ever met now, okay. But the point is, you put your energy, your hopes, your wishes, in a way like a prayer. You put your energy into whatever the item is you're putting down. And you put that down and we play. That's the medicine, that's the prayer in that. And as we play, someone scores a point, they get to go to that whole pile and they can take anything they want. And then they take that prayer then gets transmitted. That's the philosophy. But they don't get, some rules, some games, depends on who's running the game, they can say you can't keep that gift. You have to give that away to someone. So go build community. Say, here, I brought you something. Thank you for being here. Some places they say, "Gina go, do what you want. You can keep it, you can give it away, you can do whatever." But what we're doing with kids is teaching them to be selfless, teaching them to be community-minded, teaching them to take care of people. Hey, that old lady probably needs this blanket. That family, maybe they need those socks or their shirt, or they'd really like this wild rice or this syrup. And to teach us to be community-minded. And so that's some of the way that we're trying to use this. And now, first we had to really be deliberate, and, his program would have to provide a bunch of t-shirts and other stuff, or we'd give away sets of sticks and things like that. Now people just show up and they're like, "Where's the gift blanket?" And they know, and they bring stuff and they just do it. It's really, really cool. So, we do a lot of outreach and events, and it's with all ages. I guess one thing I didn't share about these different things about stickball, because it's not really, it doesn't matter as much, but in some communities and some cultures, there are different rules about this game. Traditional two-stick and Choctaw and Cherokee and Muskogee, only the men play. And some Ojibwe communities, some Dakota communities, Ho-Chunk, Squawkies, only some of the men play. Some of the Ojibwe communities, everyone can play. Or if we play in a different way. When there's women in the game, that's how we do it now. My understanding of the way this game has been played historically in Ojibwe country, everyone could play. So that's just something to understand. If you go around the world in stickball country, that's just a thing. But so I don't care. If you can hold a stick, you can play. That's how we do it. But we break it down and we let the little kids play against the little kids. And sometimes we have women's games and sometimes we have men's games. What we do though is we adapt the rules. And so I can't go real hard on if someone identifies as being a woman, I can't touch them. Because the thing you have to understand about this game is there's only one rule. Well, the one rule is you can't catch the ball with your hand. You can't. That's the only rule in Baaga'adowewin. So, but we've changed that a little bit when it's mixed gender. We make some rules about contact. And so being that there's zero rules, there's no out of bounds, we might agree that we're going to play to 3. That's about it. But that's not really a rule. It's just an agreement. You can stick check, you can shove, you can tackle, you can do any of those things. And part of the teaching with that, with kids and with adults even, is learning to control your temper, your emotions, and understand that whatever you put out in the universe may come back to you. So most of the games are pretty friendly and they're not very violent. and it becomes more about finesse and speed. There's some good hearted pushing and shoving and lots of strong stick checking. But a lot of the folks that we play with in some of these communities, you're supposed to play hard. You're supposed to try your hardest because you're in a ceremony, you're praying, and so you have to give it your all. And so that's the way some of these games are played, is really play hard, and then when you're done, you all get together like that first slide, and we're all putting our sticks together and letting out our energy. And what a lot of that is like in games where everybody goes up and shakes hands. That's that idea, is that we're putting aside, we all tried our hardest in this game, and now we're letting any heart go. And that's what that last huddle is about, so that we can go on living the other parts of our lives and be kind and loving to each other. I could probably talk about this for 3 hours, but anyway. But one of the key things that we were missing, like I said, I grew up not knowing what a stick even looked like. They're in museum collections, and there's a handful of people that I'd seen. And I think it was 2018, after I'd played my first time, I was really excited to have some of my friends from the Twin Cities come back up, and they came up and did a day clinic, and we worked with little kids like this and had some skills training, and then we had a game. And in that game, that was a different one. That was a wager game. I brought 5 pounds of wild rice with me, and this other guy had a stick, and he thought he was really good, and he is really good, but he thought his whole team was going to be good. And so in those games, you all face off, and you kind of eyeball what everybody has, and you go, I want that stick. And he and I agreed that he wanted the rice because he's an urban guy. He didn't have access to Monoman like I do. So we agreed we're going to play, on opposite teams, and if we win, I get his good, and vice versa. So we played, and that day I won my first stick by scoring the winning point, no less. So I won that stick fair and square. And that was after that. I had about in 2019 I decided to start making sticks. So that's what I do with this. That's my contribution to this. Is being the stick maker, and I had to figure it out myself. Because there's no elder I could go give some tobacco and some gifts to and say, hey, could you teach me how you make really beautiful sticks? Can I be your apprentice? There was nobody. I had to just figure it out. Because we were, look at that, Hillary's in the slide. Because what we're doing is now having games all over the place. We're going around, some of them are games with little kids and small groups, and some are really big. Some of these games are wild games with these crazy men. And but what's cool is, I grew up not seeing it. These little ones are growing up around it. I have friends now that their children have never lived in a world that this game didn't exist. My little Wayne, he crawled out of his cradle board onto the floor and picked up a stick and scooped the ball. He couldn't even walk. That was beautiful to see. And so these young guys now, this is who I got to try to play against as a 52-year-old dude. These guys that got, 4 feet of vertical. But it's a good challenge. But what's cool is it can be for all ages, and that's part of it, is building in some longevity in our communities, because we got health problems galore in Indian country. Both my grandpa and my dad lived to be 50 years old. I've already outlived them, and I think I have a better quality of life than they had. A lot of our people are on 17 medicines and are not having a high quality of life, and that's what this game is a tool for, is for some of that. Because in this picture is an environmental educator, a school teacher, a biologist, an invasive species specialist, an executive director of Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, an environmental program manager, somebody's kid, and a guy jumping there. He's an up-and-coming woodland dancer, bilingual Ojibwe language speaker and singer, and a pretty good jumper. But it's becoming kind of broad in its appeal. And the stick making part comes from my ability to make cradle boards. So 15 years ago, I had a set of twins. My wife at the time was really pregnant, and we were making a birch bark canoe in my community. And this old timer, his name is Marvin Defoe. He's from Red Cliff. And if you know, well, you should meet Marvin sometime. He's a cool guy, and he's a master Ojibwe craftsman. He makes birch bark canoes and all kinds of other trouble. And as I'm walking by, he says, "Hey, you're having a baby, huh?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you should make that baby a dickenoggin or a cradle board." And I'd grown up around one in my home. We have one, my family. I always thought they were really beautiful, but I never had tried making one. He said, "Well, we got all this steam built and stuff here." He's, "I'll help you." So I took him up on it. What he didn't know, and I told him later, was I'm actually having a set of twins. He said, "Well, make two." So we made two. And so that's how I learned how to steam bend wood. And then did nothing with it until 2019 when I decided to use those wood bending skills to make Baaga'adowewin. So that's what we do now. So, you know, this looks like just a tree that's cut down and some materials we're collecting, but that's energy being transformed. That's our relative. That's why I brought them in the room with us. These are animate. Their agreement with the Ojibwe people was that they would help us in lots of ways. They'd be our snowshoes, they'd be our baskets, they'd be our sticks, they'd be our war clubs, our drumsticks, etc. And so we love them. And so before that tree goes down, I give it tobacco. I sing a song to the whole forest. And I explain to that tree what I'm going to do with it, how I want it to help people. And that's all part of what we impart to these kids and to these community members, as we try to have them be more sound in their understanding of, it's not just go cut a tree down. It's a ceremony. So that tree has all kinds of love and good wishes already infused into it. There's already magic in it when it starts to become a stick. And so I've been obsessively making sticks since 2019. If anyone that follows me on social media is probably just tired of looking at a Baaga'adowewin, but I do that on purpose, and it's not to show off. I do it because it was invisible. My culture was erased. This part of my culture was erased when I was a kid. And I'm doing it so in 100 years and 200 years, people are going to find these again. And hopefully it never has to get to the point where somebody has to find them again. But that's what that's for. It's to be visible. Because here in the Great Lakes region and here in Minnesota and Wisconsin and stuff, Ojibwe people are largely invisible. And so this is just part of that whole thing of not being shy anymore. That's part of what I tell these little kids, because part of the way and the behavior of some of our people is they're really shy and quiet. And they're taught to be humble, and half of that bullshit is Catholicism. And we are warrior people. All of our Indigenous people are warrior people. All people around the world are warrior people. And there's no reason I should have to be shy about who I am. And so that's part of what we tell these kids when they get up. We start a game. We all put a prayer in our heart. We all circle up and we all hold our sticks up. And we're telling the spirits, look, we're going to play a game. We're getting together to do this. And then pull the ball up and we all war cry out. And that's sending that prayer out. And a lot of times these kids are real quiet. So what are you doing? And we'll stop. My brother, he'll stop again. He'll start again. They're like, look, how much do you want that money to hear your prayer? Use your warrior of spirit, your voice. Get them to not be quite so scared to be who they are. Come out of themselves as they're a teenager. They're developing into the adult that we hope they'll be. So that's part of what this tool is. And since I'm an old guy that makes sticks, I use my voice to teach people how to make sticks now. So that's kind of cool, is to do my part to pass that on, because this has brought a lot of beauty into my life. To get to do this with my Friday, to talk to you all. But I've gotten to meet really, really cool people and play, spend my weekends hopefully becoming stronger you know, or making other people stronger. I get tired, you know, but I get to do my part and teach other people about this so that it becomes in their family when they give their kids their first stick. It comes from their grandpa or their uncle or their dad or their way. Um, and so that's what we've been doing. So part of this is really cool too, is that, you know, I don't know if you've met a lot of Indian men, but a lot of us are pretty damaged and maybe don't have the same warrior role that we once had or the provider role that we once had. And we're changing that by getting men together and letting them do some of those sort of constructive things. We hunt together, fish together, build sticks together, and do that stuff, and then do that same with the young men, young boys, and teach them, and they teach us things too. So we spend time together as just men or boys, and sometimes and women and girls do their things too. And that has a lot of value. It's a community within a community kind of thing. But yeah, it's fun to share this stuff with whoever's interested. These ladies, they made sticks for their grandkids. This lady in the middle there, her last name is Jackson. I just saw her the other day. This was about a year and a half ago. And I just went up and played a game 2 weeks ago, and she was there, and she had her stick, and she came out and played with us. I had to make sure we didn't knock her over, but she came out there and played, and that's beautiful to see. You know, people that are essentially elders out playing. So I thought she was just going to give that game away or give that stick away to somebody in her family, but she's using it. That's even better. Um, But part of what this does is allows me to do things like this, and that's sort of the beauty in that, is to share. Maybe you all don't know that these kinds of things about Ojibwe people, how they see the world, the things they do, the way they think a little bit. This game, if you will, has some crossover because people understand sport, people understand lacrosse a little bit, and so I've had opportunities to do really cool things. Recently, I've made some networks with some people with Premier Lacrosse League, and they come in for Indigenous Heritage Weekend. They come to the Twin Cities, and they invite the Twin Cities Native Lacrosse folks and myself. I bring all the Northern Ojibways down, and they have a whole weekend of games at the Vikings Training Center. So we bring all these kids from the res down there, and they get to go watch these professional lacrosse players because a lot of our kids play both. They play our traditional game, but they also play modern lacrosse. So they get to go watch their heroes play, you know. And Premier Lacrosse League is kind enough. They give us free tickets the whole weekend. It's really neat. But the side benefit of that is I get to do things like this young man here had never seen a Baaga'adowewin, so I'm explaining him how to scoop with it, how to cradle with it, and he gets to understand a little bit of what I'm sharing with you guys today. Who are these lacrosse bros? We're getting to educate the next generation of lacrosse bros. Maybe need brothers instead of bros. You know, I mean, there's all mix of kind of people that play lacrosse, so I don't mean to stereotype them, but it's sort of there. But it's a way to impact this next generation. The world is very different from the one that I grew up in. You know, I try my best to stay modern and up with whatever everybody else is doing and thinking and saying and listening to. But you know, these young people are I hope that they have a different worldview maybe than the kids I grew up around. It's a pretty rugged place to live in northern Minnesota, especially as an Indigenous person. But that's part of the benefit of that is them and their families are maybe experiencing and seeing Indigenous people in a different way. So we go down at halftime, and in front of 6,000 people in the stadium, and we do exhibition games of our game, so that they understand that. And so that's it's fun. It's really powerful and building for these little kids to be like, oh my gosh, that's part of what we're teaching and giving them is it's a gift and it's fun, but it's also teaching them how to feel that pressure like all these people are watching you. That's teaching them what they need in this modern world as far as a warrior spirit and a strength mode is to be able to work under pressure, right? So that's what we're doing, and they're having a blast, and then, you know, playing with all their relatives. So we do all that kind of crazy stuff. And these are just some shots of some of these kids. And these guys are going to be people you're going to see. They're going to do powerful things. May not be this game, but they're going to be doing powerful things with themselves, and that's what we hope. Because a lot of this isn't just about, oh, I hope you play lacrosse forever. It's we hope you be like Connor or any, do the things that you love and to be well. Because for so long, our people have not been well. This little guy, Boschkening, he's cool. He's a good little lacrosse player. He plays both modern and traditional. But Premier Lacrosse League has been really, really cool. They take their Indigenous heritage stuff. They don't just go and do a land acknowledgement. They give these people space. They give them resources. They put on things like this. Like this is a clinic they sponsor during the weekend where they introduce all these little kids to lacrosse. They gave them all sticks. They gave them all T-shirts and whatever. And they bring in pro players to work with these little bitty kids. It's really neat. And so I give them a lot of credit because they don't have to. There's some big, gigantic professional lacrosse organization. They don't need to do that. But they understand, one, where this game comes from, but they also understand where Indigenous people are coming from, I think, a little bit. So, because our people we live in two worlds in a lot of ways, right? So this is my daughter. This is one of my daughters. She plays here in Duluth for the Wolfpack and the high school level, and she plays both. And she take out a lot of people either one. But her and her twin sister there, they ran into their cousin down playing in the Twin Cities. They had to play each other in modern lacrosse. And then they see each other later and they play traditional lacrosse. And it's just beautiful. And this concept is kind of getting more and more broadly. This really nice picture of a ball and a stick I made is from a guy from Pacific Northwest Native Lacrosse. He's out in the Seattle-ish area. But he's trying to grow the game of modern lacrosse with the tribal people that live out in the Pacific Northwest because of all the health benefits, mental, physical benefits of lacrosse. And now he's infusing traditional lacrosse into it. He started out, he was just, I'm going to get free sticks in these kids' hands and play lacrosse because he grew up playing modern lacrosse. And now he's incorporating traditional lacrosse into that. And so it's kind of a good thing to share that medicine with people even that aren't even from your culture, but they want to impact kids in the same way that we do. So that's kind of what we're sharing. And that one, that's just me running past my brother. He couldn't keep up with me that day in the snow, but that's just our way of having a great time, no matter what it is and where it is, and trying to live a good life. I think that's the extent of what I have to share with you. I know there's a slide in here that says fill out a survey or an evaluation. Yep, there it is. I read the memo. But I hope that's been something unique or interesting for you to understand. And I'd be glad to entertain any of your questions. I have no idea how much time I've talked. Perfect. So, yeah. Thanks for listening. You want the mic? Here you go. Nice and warm.
Mati, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really love the way that you presented. I was really stuck up on two things, and one that I do have a question on. The first thing, gift giving, and how, like, when people put down a gift, they put it down with a prayer and they speak to their intentions and their prayer specifically. and then there's like two options, right? The gift giver decides, this gift is for you to give and build community, or you can do whatever you want and keep it. I'm curious to know if you've ever applied that philosophy to the gift giving of like the colonizer way of like grants or nonprofits that want to give or donate. Do you ever navigate having conversations that would apply that philosophy?
Hmm. At this point, I haven't come across that. Um, but yeah, I would be careful about who I take money from. And the beauty of this is I don't need a lot. We don't, you know, it takes a lot of work to make the sticks, make the balls, and communicate to people. But to have a game, that's why this works in Indian countries. You don't need, it's like playing basketball. You need the ball and the hoop. This, you need a couple posts on the end of the field and some sticks and balls, Um, I don't know if that answers you.
No, it gives me food for thought. So I was curious if you had anything. I work for f- fundraising, and something I'm advocating for is indigenizing philanthropy.
Mm.
And you brought up another thing. I don't have a question on it. Just it's very powerful, and something I'm taking with me and grateful for is just that um, how people were colonizing through Catholicism and teaching young people to be humble and shy. And I appreciate how like the sport bringing it back is bringing back also people's spirits and knowing, remembering their warrior spirit and to not be shy. So thank you.
Yeah. Not to shame Catholics too much. I don't mean to be mean, but sorta.
Anybody else?
I'm just curious, how do you score?
So yeah, I didn't explain that. I realized that as I was. So modern lacrosse has nets. This we don't play with nets. We play with a post. So an 8 to 10 foot post. The traditional legend for the game, I think the post is 3 times the height of a man. And so when you make a permanent field, you plant a post and you run up to the post. So you can score either from a distance and shoot hit post, or run right up to it and the ball touches the post. But that's not running up to the post is not easy if someone's guarding it, right? So shooting from distance works, but then you have your teammates trying to clear people up. People will basically act as a goaltender on that poster, like this, jumping. And so I might have my teammate clear them a little bit, and then they're supplementing another player because there's no positions. People just select. I'll play post because they're good at it. They're big. They're strong. They got fast twitch nerves, and they can knock the ball down. Whatever it is, they're a glutton for punishment. Yeah. So that's how you score. So it's your 1 point is for touching the post. All of the above. I mean, as long as it's done right. I don't want it to get watered down, and I don't want it to become something that it isn't. It's a ceremony, and it's a cultural practice, and it needs to, I think, because I'm a crabby old guy, it needs to be treated that way. I want to make, as long as it's done right, it's fine, but I'd love to see the competitions. We do the tournaments now. I mean, some of those kids that are in that first slide are from Bad River. They're the best kids around right now. The last 2 years, they've come over to our tournament. We hold a tournament every summer. They've beaten my team. We get second place in our own tournament. But we'll, 5, 6 teams, and they're 15 or 16, and they're fast, and they can shoot, and they're dodgy, and I can't stop them entirely. But and they're really good, and so competitions are great. But the community game and the gift giving and the regularity of having it as a community thing has a lot of merit. So I don't want to lose that either. So they all have the benefit. The after school thing has a ton of merit. People over in Bad River, the reason those kids are so good is they have a boys and girls club and a local drop-in place that transports them around, that makes a space, and they play at their lunch hours. They play at the after-school program, and they're, you know, they've taken to it. Now they're, we're from Bad River. They want to hold up their reputation now. So it's good. So I don't know. It's all of them.
Is there a face-off in traditional lacrosse, or because in modern lacrosse you do like a face-off?
Yeah.
Like who gets possession?
Yep.
Not use the microphone.
No, you're good. So the start of the
Oh,
game, to start the game or the face-off, everyone circles up. We all circle up. And you can mix in that circle. If you're on this team or that team, you can get anywhere in that circle. And that's what we'll do. And everyone sticks up, put your prayer in your heart, and I'll pump fake 3 times. And on 4, everyone war cries, ball goes up in the air, and it's free for all. Someone scores, we start right back there in the middle. The person who scores gets the honor of throwing it up or handing it off to someone, let them throw it up for them while maybe they're going to get their gift. So they'll give it to some little kid, here, throw it up for me. Yeah. But that's how face-offs work. Yep. Yeah.
You've been talking about kind of the resurgence of popularity in this area. I didn't know if in other areas, like from the other 6 that you have, if it's kind of on a similar trajectory as far as just becoming popular and getting revitalized.
Yeah. Good question. The Haudenosaunee have maintained their game pretty well out on the East Coast. They play both modern, and they'll do their traditional longhouse ceremonial games. So they've maintained that pretty well because of the popularity of lacrosse. The Southeastern tribes, the 2-stick game, that's probably 10, 12 years ahead of us as far as its resurgence. It's becoming real popular again. There's now big tournaments down there. Mississippi Choctaw in particular put on quite a wild tournament every summer. It's part of a big, huge kind of fair. But the tournament's sort of the pinnacle of it. But certainly here in the Great Lakes, it's growing like crazy, and it's really, really cool. So that's our hope.
If somebody wants to go to a game, how should they find out about a game?
Well, you could probably follow me on Instagram for one, if you wanted to. If you want to put up with lots of pictures of sticks and stickball and whatever other random things I do. You can follow FDL Ojibwe at the Fond du Lac language program on Instagram. They post their flyer and their doings. The other one is Center for American Indian and Minority Health at UMD. They sponsor games here in Duluth. So we kind of have Sunday games and we have Thursday games right now. So otherwise, people can look up Twin Cities Native Lacrosse if they're from the metro area and ask to message them and say, put me in your group chat. That's where they decide which park they're going to go play in on Sunday, or it's usually when they play. So, or, sometimes the stuff's on like the Fond du Lac band's social media. If we're having our tournament, they'll actually put the poster up or whatever. But it's kind of low key, like a lot of it. Yeah, it's everybody's basically sharing it around on their social media pages, and the different people that are the advocates in the different communities. So there's people in Bad River, and there's people in Hayward and LCO, and there's people up here that are running games and sharing it around. T-Hows, THOWES, and then the number 1. So T-Hows 1, or just look up Thomas Howes on Facebook or social or Instagram.
We have maybe time for one more question.
Cool.
Oh.
small question, but how do you make the balls like traditionally?
Good. That is a good question. So there are a couple of different kinds of traditional balls. Some are wooden. This is a wooden whistling ball. You throw it, it sounds like a bird. Pretty cool. This is like a beta prototype ball I made. The other ones, these are leather with magic inside. But also maybe some other leather and some other weight. You can put a stone or lead, wrap it in hide, wrap it in deer hair or other padded material. Every ball maker makes them differently. This is the ones I make most of the time now. My brother was showing you, he makes some pretty wicked balls. That's where I learned I make them from. Some people just make a circular ball and make it sort of like a hacky sack style. There's no real right or wrong. It's just kind of a preference on weight and size and style. I like these ones with the wings on it. They do kind of random things when they hit the ground because there's a knot kind of there. So that kind of adds some chaos to the evening. But, yeah.
All right. I think, wait, one more? Yeah, we have time. Just kidding.
Thanks for sharing, Tom. This has been really educational, and you do a lot of really great work within our community. So I just want to appreciate kind of all you bring to it. But I do have a question. Is there much of a passing game in traditional lacrosse? Because that looks like a really challenging thing to catch.
It does. But that's part of what the teaching of this is about hand-eye coordination. And so hockey players are really good at this game. Baseball players are really good at this game because they have the same hand-eye coordination. So catching is just that. It's up, snatch it out of the air. So it looks like, oh, that'd be hard to catch. And then pretty soon, you're lobbing it all the way down the field, and 50% of the time, the kid's grabbing it, and they're going. So it starts out really clumsy, and that's why people would spend a lot of time clacking around on the ground. But eventually, it becomes, yeah, you can catch, and you can pass and shoot. It's awesome. It's really a lot of fun. But that's part of the thing that it teaches, though, is determination. Keep on trying. By nature, I'm not a lacrosse player. I'm actually a skateboarder and a snowboarder. But the same mental things that I learned from those, I've applied to making sticks and playing this and learning this new skill in my 40s. And that's what I hope the kids get out of it, or anyone, or for that matter. And that's what it takes to live through life. That's what I tell these little kids sometimes is life is hard. For anybody who's a human being, it's hard. We have lots of challenges, and we need tools, whether that's running or skiing or snowboarding or skateboarding or whatever your joy is. You need that. We say that Zanagad al-Bamad is when life can be hard, but that's why the money to give us tools, though, and gifts is to be able to withstand that. So, yeah, thanks for your kind words. Thanks for being here, y'all.
Let's give it up.
And Daryl, if you want to come learn how to catch, I'll show you. No,
And we have our closing remarks starting at 4:30. So we have 15 minutes. Grab some water, hydrate, and don't forget we check the mutual aid board. And then upstairs too, there's this experiential photo booth, kind of on the right side. So you can check that out as we close up for the evening. Thank you.
Yeah. Those are like the standard ones that this is the one I actually play with. So, yeah, I guess I know it's mine. My symbol on it, you know. It's a different version, but it's mine. It's sort of my maker's mark in a way. Yeah, in a way. That's what I do. Yeah. now it's inside. We're in the one live trail. We haven't stopped. We started last week, or 2 weeks ago, was the first week we were indoors. Trying to stay outside, but then we threw daylight. Yeah, I expect to stay out. Crossing the wrist and locking in. So if I get tackled, I'm less likely to lose this if I were to do this. It's a lot easier to knock my arms apart after that ball. So the shotgun game is that this is walked over. It was a great activity to run down the field. And if I get knocked down, I may hang on to the ball. Not entirely, for sure. But then what this does is drop the stick. Shoot, their game is a post as well. They can scoop it. I sometimes can scoop the ball. That's why I get that one off the ground. But a lot of times they're trying to do a scissor, it's in a scrum. But these ones you can actually scoop it. Yeah, obviously East Coast. I think the most common thing that I learned in the game that was the most common is actually like field hockey or shooting. Familiar with that? The East Coast they play field hockey or shooting. That was across the Pacific Northwest, California. Everybody played shooting. Some people I know in Virginia are revitalizing that play. This one. I'm not gonna take on another sport.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, and if this is spreading to the West Coast, then that does the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, lacrosse should be in the Olympics.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine, she's on the women. I don't know if you don't follow lacrosse, you know this, but in lacrosse, the Haudenosaunee are still so dialed into lacrosse that they have a national team. So in 2028, they're going to be in lacrosse is back in the Olympics. The Haudenosaunee are going to field a team for the Olympics. Man, and for the very first time, so in the early 1900s, there was a man in the Olympics. 28, first time man and women playing lacrosse in the Olympics. And one of my friends, she's down in the Twin Cities right now doing a clinic with some kids, and she's on the women's team. So the Haudenosaunee, the Olympic rules are they can have 4 non-Haudenosaunee. So Ojibwe's aren't Haudenosaunee. If they have 3 Ojibwe people, 2 Ojibwe's and a Cree, which is basically. And she's Cree, and she's when she walks into the World Games and the qualifiers for the Olympics, she's my stick for Ojibwe girls. So they have some badass stuff. They're on the for the pageant at the beginning of the World Games or at the beginning of the Olympics, the ladies come in with their beautiful ribbon dresses, and they put sticks on their dresses out. I didn't own the rights to the picture, so I didn't. I was gonna put it in here. It's just awesome. Hopefully, I can see it for my stick. I don't think that they're gonna stop using
first flag